Hi, this is Calvin Cox. It's 9:26 p.m. Thursday evening, April 11, 2013. And I went and did some more calculations about the Earth and the Moon. I don't know where I put the density information, but the numbers that I came up with, I got on at the library on their computer and got on went to Google and typed in calculator and got a nice calculator that would count out every single one without doing scientific notation. And the numbers I came up with were, I thought, pretty weird. I'm just going to have to look at them again. That's not so easy to figure out 1/6 gravity on the Moon as is on Earth. But I'm still looking at that one. That's going to be a bit of a challenge to balance out different claimed densities. Something's going on. I don't know. Doesn't make sense so far to look at it again. What I'm going to talk about and propose is that the USA obviously is in a very unusual situation in time in its history, where we have suffered a massive economic punch and are very slowly regaining from that. My feeling is that a lot of the citizens of the United States of America have slowly had their rights watered down. Let me put it that. I guess that's the best way to say it. You know, it's like taking a container and whatever, I don't know, the legal establishment. You have a container, your rights, and the legal establishment goes, we need to be making all the decisions on this, and so they pour some of their diluting whatever into it, and the next thing you know, your rights are flying out the window. And I'm going to try and prove that in a minute. Was discussing something with somebody about how ideas are introduced or slowly introduced, and certain things happen where people don't even realize what's going on, and the next thing you know, they turn around, they don't have any rights left. They've been, anyway, it's difficult. It's the only way one good way I feel I can explain it is if there's a pond, okay, that's filled with water, and there's a frog in there, and let's say to kill or immobilize the frog, slowly raise the temperature of the water in the pond. The frog doesn't notice the temperature change because it's very slow, very incremental, and then the temperature change until it's too late. Okay, the frog is eventually immobilized, the water's too hot, the frog's muscles won't react anymore, and so the frog is completely capturable, okay, imprisoned, so to speak. Maybe he's not dead, or he does die. Okay, now in this illustration, I would say the frog right there equals USA citizenry, okay, and the pond water equals any entity. Could be any entity, an individual, a business who wants to operate a certain way, to trying to influence a group, an advertising company who wants to get people to think a certain way, to buy a certain product, or just politically think a certain way. Okay, there are different ways to make people think what you want them to think. Or it could be a government entity. Okay, any entity, either government or advertisers or whomever I previously mentioned, who seek to do your thinking for you and put their thinking and will in place of yours. Okay? USA citizens are constantly letting politicians do their thinking for them. And USA citizens, we don't have to do that. We can push political change to slightly modernize our system so that on, 2 or 3 issues a year, all the USA citizens in the whole country get to give a direct line vote on a particular issue. 2 or 3 issues a year would be good. Yeah, it would be doable, it would be workable. It would give people enough time to think about an issue and have it framed from many different viewpoints so you can get, your take on it and vote directly. And I think it would make the country stronger. I think it would allow the USA citizens to kind of eventually really reach out and grab the reins of the horse of government and say, whoa, we want our say back. All these 200 plus years, it's been from the inception of the country, slowly more and more and more and more rights have been slowly taken away. And it's about time that the U.S. citizens have, a say like, hey, you work for us. We're taking the reins. We want you to listen to us. So every year, 2 or 3 issues, major issues, we're going to vote on. We're tired of you making all the decisions all the time, and it's ridiculous because a lot of those decisions are quite unnecessary for you to make. In other words, why the hell do you need, with the President and Congress, that's like over 530 people, why do you need them to make a decision about if the rich should pay more taxes? Because the least paid of all of those people makes $173,000 a year as a beginning congressman. Why do you want someone making that amount of money who is having outside corporations paying their re-election campaigns? Why do you want them making that decision? They don't need to make that decision. Really, they shouldn't be making that decision. They're too intertwined in all the money to make a good, fair decision. That's the point. Okay? There's way more poor people. I think it's 70% of all the citizens in the USA, the ones who are working, earn $57,000 a year or less. It's obvious that 70% of those people would have said, yes, the rich should pay more of their fair share of taxes. Okay? It's obvious that would have been voted on. Okay? Nobody in their right mind that makes that little money is going to say, oh, well, no, the rich, they shouldn't have to pay. They're not going to say that. They're going to say, yes, they should. Okay? Congress should not have made that decision on any of that. That should have been a direct vote to the American people. Do you want the rich to pay more money? But obviously, the vote would have come back a majority said, yes, that's democracy. Okay? Some of the other things they're voting on make no sense either. But somehow American citizens have been slowly brainwashed that they're not supposed to think for themselves anymore. They're supposed to let our elected officials do all the thinking. I'm totally convinced of that. Otherwise, how could people be letting so many decisions slide through that they're not really having a say on, the ones that are so incredibly obvious? Okay. This might be one of my worst talks yet. I don't know. Gonna have to see what happens here. Okay. My point is, you do not need a politician to decide certain things for you. You're quite capable of deciding them yourself. We are one of the most educated countries on the face of the earth. And we spend a huge chunk of money every year, every county in this whole country, educating people. there's no need for politicians to make every single major decision. It doesn't make sense because it leaves you, the citizens, out of the thinking loop. You know, your feelings are really not considered. Because if the politicians really were concerned what you thought, they would have you making 2 or 3 major decisions every year as a straight line vote. Okay. Now, one thing, a couple examples of what I'm talking about. USA citizens should have decided whether the rich should have to pay more taxes. Very basic. I think sure all of them would have decided. That vote would have been quickly decided. Citizens decide about reining in guns. Okay, to what degree, what level, I mean, what's going to be done. We don't need Obama to get in there and decide this for American citizens. I can decide for myself and vote straight on what my viewpoint is. And so can all the other eligible citizens who are voting right. They can decide that. Congress does not need to decide this. The president does not need to decide it. They all need to stay out of it and let Joe Average citizen decide it, because it directly affects all USA citizens. Citizens decide about same-sex unions being legal. We don't need the Supreme Court to decide that. We don't need the president to decide it. We don't need Congress to decide it. Stay out of my business. I can decide that. I'm 54 years old. Think a little bit. You know, if anything, the politicians need to figure out how to balance the budget. Quit deciding all these side issues because it's keeping them from doing the job they're supposed to be doing, which they didn't do because the country almost totally economically collapsed. Citizens decide to put a political mechanism in place to control congressmen and the president. You know, they're not working together to get the financial problem solved. Citizens decide that the president and Congress quit bastardizing and confusing our political system by freely intertwining democracy with representative democracy. The president and Congress get so carried away with using democracy when it's not democracy. It's representative democracy. Huge difference. But they continually always bastardize the whole thing by saying democratic this, democrat. No, it's not democratic. It's representative democracy. Use the right phraseology and continue to use the right phraseology for like forever. And quit using democracy. We do not have a democracy in this country. It is a representative democracy. There is a massive difference. The difference is Joe Average gets left out of the major decisions for like forever. Okay. One thing I want to throw out here that is really, this is an interesting one. I'm not sure a lot of people could really understand this or accept it. I think that government takes money from people, they purchase things, and then they say it's government property. Okay. And my thinking is, if I pay in taxes to something and the government turns around and purchases things with that tax money, it's not the property of the government. It's the partial property of all the people that paid for it. Okay? But you never ever hear politicians ever say anything like that. You see, a politician is nothing more than an elected official. An elected official is nothing more than a manager. Okay? They are a hired manager for a set period of time. They manage and operate systems for people, for cities, for military. So I'm going to throw this out here, and I don't have any problem understanding it at all. But the thing that my feeling is, I kind of feel that the United States American citizens work very, very hard every day to get up and go to their jobs and earn a paycheck and turn around and pay their taxes, yet they get disrespected so many times and to such a large degree because they're not really given credit for being the base of everything that supports everything up above. Okay, the U.S. citizens work their tookuses off regular to support all the government, all the military, everything else about them, but you're never told, you know, hey, thanks, you know, this is actually what y'all have paid for. We simply manage it for you, the citizens. But you never hear that, okay? And it is actually massive disrespect. You never get credit where the credit's due. And the credit is due to the people who go to work and earn the taxes and pay their taxes. Okay? So my viewpoint is this. What you pay for is owned by you, the USA citizenry, and all government officials are only hired managers. Don't ever believe the total lie of government property, because it's not government property. It's citizen taxpayer property who have paid for everything that was purchased. You paid for it. It's yours. But you don't manage it. Okay? You are a part owner. They, the government employees, and only manage and operate what you paid for. If you can't understand this, you've been brainwashed completely. And I almost think some people have. You know, I mean, it's pretty ridiculous. It would be nice if somebody in government could ever figure out how to show a little more respect to Joe Average, who pays for everything. And also the corporations who pay all their taxes into purchasing all this stuff. You know, and Mr. Bill Gates and everyone else. You know, they pay their money. It's we collectively have purchased and paid for it, and collectively it's ours, the people who have paid for it. It's not the property of the U.S. government. It's not the property of the state of Maryland. It's not the property of Montgomery County. Okay? All of these entities are only a figurative thing on a piece of paper. Okay? They're an incorporated entity. That's all they are. And they're managed by people who are elected. Those people who are elected, who are managers, they're paid managers for a set period of time. They are not the owners. They are just the managers. Okay? It would really be nice if somehow that would be laid out. You know, so people could kind of like get their mind around that grasp of the reality of that situation. Because I think it's important that Joe Average realizes how important he is and what he pays for, and that yes, partially it really is his, and he deserves the respect for that, for which he works so hard to provide, with everyone else who works and pays their taxes too. That would really be nice, to finally have Joe Average get some recognition in that department. Because you keep hearing, you know, government this and government that, on and on. I mean, you know, government people will be having you thinking they're gods descending on clouds from heaven if you keep listening to this crap. It's ridiculous. Thanks.